In just a few days, Ghanaians will be heading to a historic polls because, first of all, a former president is contesting a sitting president, and we are also having to vote during a pandemic. But how do Ghanaians abroad feel about being left out of such an important election? We have a conversation on that. We will be right back with more. Welcome back. The Representation of the People's Amendment Act was passed in 2006, and this is to allow Ghanaians living abroad to participate in the electoral process back home in Ghana. We were told that in 2020, which is this year, Ghanaians will vote. But that is not happening. How do Ghanaians feel? And I've been joined by three astute guests for this conversation. We have Sekuo Nkrumah, who is a political activist, Nana Kwodjo Bonsu, also a political activist, and John Taden, who is a political economist. Gentlemen, welcome to the discussion. Let me come to you, John. Are you surprised that Ghanaians abroad will once again be disenfranchised?
Oh, no, I'm not surprised. I think what's going on is that every political party that is in government that has the chance to implement this bill, the Representation of the People's Amendment Act, actually studies and looks at what it stands to benefit from it before they make any moves. The Electoral Commission actually had the implementation of the bill in its 2020 budget. But somehow ended up not implementing it this year. I think the most recent excuse that they have given is that there was a change in the leadership of the Electoral Commission. But I find the excuse to be quite frivolous because the change in the commissioner did not stop the planning for the general elections. Why does it stop the planning for the implementation of the Representation of the People's Amendment Act? Because there were people actually appointed to specifically see to the implementation of the bill. But I think that somewhere along the line, the Electoral Commission decided that they were going to implement a new voters register, which had a lot of issues in terms of attempting to disenfranchise some of the people across the border.
Are you disappointed that this has not been implemented? And would you have voted anyway?
Definitely. I mean, when I'm in Ghana, I did vote. I mean, first of all, I don't even know why President Akufo-Addo changed the Electoral Commission. First of all, I mean, you won. Was it Charlotte to say, was that the name? So I don't really get that. I mean, if she was doing anything wrong against you, then how come you won? If we go by that logic, the NPP. So that alone also raises some suspicions. I'm not saying people cannot be fair, whether they belong to NPP or NDC. But why didn't we build the capacity, I mean, the EEC, to build capacity from within and let them promote whoever is in their leadership? So we see it as an institution, not as somebody coming in from outside, you want to bring a new head. But we are very fond of doing that in Ghana. Like, we think changing the name or changing the head will make any difference. No, it is the capacity that you have to build in that institution that really builds it to the level that everybody will be happy with.
NPP has a lot of followings abroad. You are having to travel back to Ghana on Sunday because of the elections, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So how do your members feel about being left out of the process?
It's hard because I know a lot of people here who would have loved to be home to vote, but then financially wise, some can't go because you have to leave your job, you have bills to pay, you have to buy airline ticket, you have to have money that money on you to spend, and you can't just go to Ghana empty-handed.
How much is it going to cost you to get to Ghana for voting?
I mean, it depends. I mean, the flight I'm taking, economy, I think I'm paying $1,600.
John, is it too much to allow Ghanaians abroad to vote or to allow the procedural requirements for such a process? And how does it work?
Well, there are some countries that we can look at, like Senegal, Sierra Leone, Cape Verde, South Africa, that you guys have mentioned, that are all in Africa. I think for the case of Senegal, what they did was they started by identifying any country in which they had more than 500 or potentially more than 500 of its citizens living there. And then they would open up a registration center. At the end of the registration process, if you had more than 500 people registering to vote, then you would get a polling station during elections. The volunteers, the polling agents are mostly some of their students who are in those countries, and even some of those people who registered to vote. And you're not going to run into a shortage of these people. In the case of, say, Cape Verde, they had a concern where there are actually more Cape Verdeans living outside the country than those who live in the country. And so there were concerns that the people who live outside the country might change results of a national election if they're allowed to vote. And so they started off by implementing a formula where the vote of a person living outside Cape Verde was worth 3/5 of the vote of a person living inside Cape Verde. And so you're not entirely disenfranchising the people, but you're also making sure that the people living outside the country are not completely changing the results of the elections within the country. For Ghana, we're blessed with more than 3 million people living outside the country, like I said. And in fact, we should want to implement ROPAA because most of these people send in enough remittances that are as high as the annual GDP of Ghana. The annual remittances of Ghanaians living abroad to Ghana are about $5 billion a year, which is about the same amount as Ghana's annual GDP. These people who send in the monies have the same concerns that Ghanaians living in Ghana have, which is whether the investment projects are going into friendly business environments, whether the government is allowing businesses to grow, what are the tax rates, and all these issues that Ghanaians complain about. And so giving them a chance to have a say in who becomes president of Ghana and even parliament for a constituency is an incentive to make them want to contribute more. And so you have to compare the logistic costs to the economic benefits that you stand to gain by implementing the Representation of the People's Amendment Act.
Okay, so and who qualifies to vote? Is it those with dual citizenship? So
currently, though, the Electoral Commission hasn't come up with the full definition of who is the Ghanaian living abroad yet. But in a lot of places, all you need, for some countries, I think Zimbabwe or Zambia, I don't remember, you need to have a Zimbabwean passport, and you need to have lived outside the country not more than a year. And so, you know, if you're somebody who goes in and out of Ghana every year, then you should be allowed to vote. Ghana hasn't determined that, but if you can demonstrate that you have a family in Ghana and that you have property still in the country that you actively manage, and that you still have a Ghanaian passport, and you've been to the country over the last, say, 2 years, then you are as interested in the country just as anyone else living in the country, and I think you should be allowed to vote. There are some other concerns that tend to be more legal than logistic, which are when there is an electoral dispute at a polling station located outside Ghana, then which country's jurisdiction qualifies to adjudicate such a case, which I think is a hurdle that we can jump over, either by working with the judiciary of these external countries to allow you to adjudicate specifically those issues, or to educate them about your electoral laws so that they can adjudicate electoral disputes that are almost certainly to arise every now and then in these countries.
If in Ghana is ready, we have that financial muscles to implement this.
I think that we are more than capable of doing it. Like a small country such as Cape Verde is doing it. Senegal is doing it, Zimbabwe, South Africa. We are not poorer than these countries. Besides that, you don't even look at whether you have the resources now, but think of it as an investment in incentivizing Ghanaians to become more interested in the country, to contribute more to the economic development of the country. And so if you give them a chance to contribute politically, you incentivize them to contribute economically.
Okay, Sekuo, let me bring you in here. I mean, John spoke about, clearly now we don't even know the definition of who qualifies to vote as a Ghanaian abroad or in the diaspora. Do you think that would be, you spoke about maybe 2024, we should be able to implement this ROPAA. Do you think the lack of clarity on who even qualifies might hinder the progress when it comes to the next election?
it should not. But personally, I think I have some reservations. For example, let me speak for, I'm in the US now. I have a green card. That's why I can live in the US. But I didn't go for an American citizenship. So I think if it's implemented, then I have every right to vote as any Ghanaian. But those Ghanaians who have become American citizens, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how the law is going to be framed, but honestly, I will have my reservation that those people should be allowed to vote in the Ghanaian elections, because I think once you become a citizen of another country, in this case, for example, I mean, America, then, I mean, I don't see why then, I mean, you can vote in American elections, you have every right, but I'm not too sure why you will be voting in the Ghana election.
Kwodjo, what will you be disappointed the next 4 years? You have to travel to Ghana again and to go through this process because it's going to cost you a lot.
I mean,
what, in your opinion, should be the way forward as far as commitment towards the implementation is concerned?
The next 4 years shouldn't be a problem. They can't say finance, because I think even this year it was budgeted for. So I think even the money is still there. So if we didn't have the capacity, they wouldn't have given them money to roll that out.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about who qualifies, I think they've not come out with who qualifies and who doesn't qualify. But I would think those who have acquired the American passport and who don't have dual citizenship should not be allowed to vote. Because when you go and swear the oath, your Ghanaian passport is taken away from you. So you can't hold yourself as a Ghanaian.
Okay, John, you spoke about remittances back home and how much Ghanaians abroad contribute back home. Will you say that the outcome of the 2020, just like any other elections we've had in the past, the outcome will be a true reflection, or can we boldly say that is the voice of the people, since some people have been disenfranchised?
Well, clearly we have, it's been the voices of the people in 2004, 2008, 2012, and 2016. Nothing is different this time around. So clearly it's still the voices of the people, but not enough of the people, not many people. And having Ghanaians living abroad to vote, like I said, has a much more economic benefit for Ghana than even a political benefit. And I say that because I think that Ghanaians living abroad are just as politically diverse as those living in Ghana. In fact, in every major city where I see an MPP association, I see also an NDC association that is just as active. And so we most likely have just as diverse a population living outside Ghana as live in Ghana. So in terms of whether it will be representative of the populace, it will be, except not enough of the people.
What do you say to critics who have said that, okay, it's not appropriate or it's not fair for some people enjoying some good services elsewhere, good economic system, good roads, good electricity, water, and all the social amenities, and then they will have to decide for us?
So this is the thing. When they say Ghanaians living abroad, people have the tendency to assume an uncle who has been outside the country for the past 20 years, who has probably never visited, and who some people have even lost his contacts and stuff. But indeed, Ghanaians living abroad, like Kwodjo or Nkrumah, are people who have been there even over the past 6 months, who are otherwise outside the country for some either educational, entrepreneurial, business, or whatever purpose, who are only outside the country for a couple of years. And so these people, you can't actively argue that you care more about Ghana than them. In fact, there was a survey by the Diaspora TV network that showed that 63% of Ghanaians living abroad said they would want to move back to Ghana, not to work for a company, but to start their own business. So the majority of the people living outside Ghana actually have intention of starting businesses back in Ghana, but their main concerns, surprisingly, are just the same as those living in Ghana: corruption, taking too long to open a business, like taxes, and all sorts of problems. Besides that, though, if we can prove to ourselves, both practically and theoretically, that the people living in Ghana shouldn't have too much say in who runs the country, like I said, we can go with the example of Cape Verde.
You have people here who ship things to Ghana, who pay duty, they pay taxes. You have people here who have children, who have nephews, nieces in Ghana, they pay their school fees. People send money to take care of their parents, they pay hospital bills and other stuff. So we all feel it. So you can't say because I live outside, I can't decide.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for this discussion. I'm grateful for your time this afternoon. It's been a fruitful discussion. Do we agree?
Yeah.
Sure. So I hope we do this some other time. Thanks so much for joining me.
All right. Thank you too.
I'm grateful. That will be all for our discussion today. But on the second part of the discussion, we will be gauging the political atmosphere back in Ghana with the same guest. Stay tuned for that.